Hello everyone, and welcome to a new playthrough of Millennium Dawn version 1.9, a total conversion mod for Hearts of Iron 4, where we will be playing a country you chose in a vote on my channel community page, Republic of Singapore. As usual, the first episode will start with a history of Singapore and information about its current predicament. Then we will jump into the game, talk about our setup and our plans for the future, after which we will put everything in place so that starting in episode 2 we can follow a path that you will all be able to understand and hopefully support. So if learning about history or dealing with the game's setup is not your thing, you can use the tags in the video description to jump to a relevant part that interests you, or you can jump to episode 2 where the game proper will start. The link to the playlist is at the top of the video's description. For everyone else, let's get right into it with the brief history of Singapore. So Republic of Singapore is an island country and a de facto city-state located in Southeast Asia on the southern tip of the Malay Peninsula, strategically located between the Strait of Malacca, South China Sea, and Strait of Johor. The recorded history of Singapore actually dates to the year 1299 CE, when we have first records of a settlement in the area, a kingdom of Singapura. The settlement was however razed at the end of the 14th century, then later rebuilt and razed again in 1613 by a Portuguese raid in the area and abandoned completely for over 2 centuries. Current Singapore was founded on 28th of January 1819 by the British, who realized that the main route to China for tea and opium trade went around this area. And the small settlement was proclaimed as an open port and quickly grew into a bustling harbor. Despite the growing crime and problems with violence and prostitution, Singapore grew from 1,000 people at the end of 1819 to over 80,000 by 1860. Most of the settlers were of Chinese origin, but there were also Malay and Indian settlers as well as many Europeans. By the turn of the century, it also became a hub for rubber industry that boomed in Malaya and was one of the cornerstones of the British Empire. The city and the entire area was barely affected by World War I, but due to its strategic position, received much attention after it. It served first as a large naval base for the British fleet in the area, and after the Japanese invasion of Manchuria in 1941, it became the British stronghold against further Japanese expansion. Not only was there around 60,000 British troops stationed here at the outbreak of World War II, but there was also a large base for the Royal Air Force and the largest dry dock in the world at the time. However, despite all the preparations, Singapore fell to the Japanese during their invasion of Malaya, and after only a brief fight. Winston Churchill called the loss of Singapore the worst disaster and largest capitulation in the British history, and he wasn't far from the truth. Over 85,000 military personnel were captured, and as Singapore was predominantly Chinese, the occupation of the city was exceptionally harsh. Just the Suk Ching massacre that took place in February 1942 cost lives of between 25,000 to 50,000 Chinese Singaporeans, with unknown amounts of wounded. After the end of the war, Singapore returned under the British rule, but the once great port was a shadow of its former glory. Most of the city's infrastructure was destroyed, there was a lack of food which went to rampant crime and violence, and it took nearly 2 years before the economy of the city started growing again. But it wasn't until the 1950s that the city truly recovered. The fall of Singapore and the crimes of the Japanese occupational force eventually led to a formation of an independence movement. The Singaporeans felt that the World War II clearly shown that the British Empire was not able to adequately protect Singapore in case of another war. A brief period of civil unrest led to negotiations with Britain, and Singapore was promised full internal self-governance, with the exception of defense and foreign affairs, which were to stay with the government in London. The solution proved only short-lived, however, when Singapore gained full independence and joined Malaysia on 16th of September 1963 as a federal area. This too, however, was only temporary. See, the problem was that Malaysia was a newly born federation. As Singapore was a bustling city neighboring it, joining the federation made sense to everyone. However, there was an issue. Malaysia already had a large ethnic minority of Chinese people, and when Singapore, a predominantly ethnically Chinese city, joined it, it further tipped the scales away from the Malay population. Any advantage Singapore brought to Malaysia was outweighed by the fact that it added a large Chinese population. The next 2 years were filled with ethnic tensions, in many cases even outright violence against the Chinese, and in an attempt to tip the balance of scales back to the Malayan majority, Singapore was expelled from the Malaysian Federation on the 9th of August 1965, finally gaining complete independence in, let's face it, a fairly unique way. It might even be the only country in the world that had independence actually forced upon it. After gaining its independence, Singapore formed as a Republic of Singapore and remained independent to this day. Due to its strategic position and shrewd economic policy, it became one of the 4 Asian tigers, maintaining rapid economic growth through most of its history. Today, Port of Singapore is one of the world's busiest ports. Tourism grew immensely, and Singapore became one of the most developed nations in the world, with a large high-tech industry sector and fully export-oriented economy. It, however, has its problems as well. While Singaporeans enjoy very high standards of living, great healthcare, high levels of education, and very low unemployment, and while the city has a very low crime rate, the city ranks fairly low on the freedom indexes. The country has been ruled by a single party since the 60s, the People's Action Party, which wields significant control over the entire country, far beyond what can be considered normal by Western standards, even though the country has regular, fairly free elections. The press freedom and freedom of speech are also limited. The city also has high levels of income inequality, only made worse by the effects of the 1997 Asian financial crisis. Don't forget we're starting in the year 2000. Politically, there is no war in sight, and there never was, but that doesn't mean foreign relations are smooth across the board. In fact, Singapore had a number of disputes with both Malaysia and Indonesia, 2 of its largest neighbors. In the game, Malaysia even has a claim on Singapore. And last but not least, the super city covers almost the entirety of its 734.3 square kilometers of land, having no way to grow. Ironically, the sale of marine sand to Singapore, which is used for further land reclamation, is banned by both aforementioned Malaysia and Indonesia. Go figure, the relations are strained. Okay, I tried to make it short and concise. We managed in 9 minutes, and I still managed to highlight some of the factors that will influence our Let's Play. We will touch on all of these and many others in the game, which is where we are going to jump right now. Let's start by reading all of the description that we have available in the game. So, where is Singapore? Here. So, Singapore. As you may see, the government has a pro-Western orientation, ideology is Western outlook, and we are being led by Goh Chok Tong. He is actually giving us a bit of a political power gain, 10%, because he's a career politician. Pro-Western clique gives us daily pro-Western support of 0.02. An established parliament member gives us additional political power of plus 10%. That is pretty good. Goh Chok Tong was first elected Prime Minister in 1990, winning with a comfortable majority. Tong's accession to Prime Minister and his early years as Prime Minister are littered with abnormalities. Goh became Prime Minister after Lee Kuan Yew stepped down in later 1990. Actually, Lee Kuan Yew was a leader since Singapore gained its independence, so he ruled for over 25 years. I think that the independence happened in 1965. Yep, 1965. I was just checking my notes. So, over 25 years. Goh proceeded to call a snap election then. It was a landslide for the PAP and allowed Goh to usher in a new mandate. Although he is not as notable as his predecessor Lee Kuan Yew, Gok made strides with his policies that supported little bohemias within the city. Next elections will be in January 2002, so in 2 years, and ruling party, as we mentioned, is PAP with a subnote of Western Clique. I'm gonna speak a bit more about what this means when we get to the politics part of the game. Singapore, at the turn of the century, had at most regional authority among the nations of Asia and abroad. The Asian financial crisis also did no favors to the small nation at the mouth of the Malay Peninsula. Outside of the financial crisis and its small stature, it has shown its strength in the entrepot, banking, and foreign investment. The Singaporean people and their government have shown truly what it is like to be dubbed the Lion City. So, we have modifiers. ASEAN member, which gives us a bit more of a daily political power gain, 0.1, which is not bad. Coupled with our leader's political gain, he's giving us plus 20%, so every little point of extra political power will be used for us, especially for us. Tax cost factor is lowered by 2%, you get a bit of extra stability. Okay, war support is lowered by 2%, but we're not planning to go into war anytime soon. Trade deal opinion factor is increased by 3%, and AI modifier desire to be in or expand a faction minus 1,000. ASEAN, or ASEAN, is a primary economic intergovernmental organization based in Jakarta that was originally established in 1967. It has since expanded to include those countries that were originally excluded in the tense environment of the Cold War, and has sought to counter the growing influence of China, as well as maintain independence from the West. It is committed to the principles of multilateralism, international law, peaceful dispute settlement, non-interference, and self-determination. The Entrepot of Malacca, which gives us additional 10% political power gain. Okay, I'm starting to like this, because the more political power we gain, the better for us, as we will be predominantly using soft power. Tax cost factor is lowered by additional percent, so together that's minus 3%. Trade deal opinion factor plus 15%, and extra trade to overlord plus 10%. The position of Singapore has made it a global trade center since colonial times. It sits in one of the world's most strategic resource routes in the Strait of Malacca. The more we control the flow of trade from east to west and west to east, the more profit we stand to make. Actually, I had to Google what entrepot means, and it is a trade port that was used as a storage for trade. When the ship passed through there, it sold its goods in Singapore, and then additional or other ships came and bought it in the entrepot. So it is a place where you import with the main goal of exporting again. So I don't know if you guys know what I mean, but I didn't know this word before. So entrepot of Malacca, today it doesn't play such a role anymore, but because it managed to grow its economic power so much, it is now one of the main trade hubs anyway, even though that this trade type is no longer that important. And the last factor that we have here is the 1997 Asian financial crisis, which lowers our stability by 5%, construction speed by 15%, resources to market are lowered by 10%, and trade deal opinion factor is lowered by 30%. Okay, that's not that bad. The only thing that I will be hurting for is the stability, but we'll find a way to counter it. The economic crisis that gripped developing East and Southeast Asia threw decades of growth down the drain. The loss of confidence in the national currency still plagues the central banks to this day. Public and private debt has also skyrocketed. Painful lessons were learned, past unwanted economic reforms are in full swing. Each country were hit differently, and each have their own solutions. The influx of investment to the affected countries were once half of the total sum in the world. Was once half of the total sum in the world. Sorry for the typos, I am reading this for the first time. But now those goes to China and elsewhere. And then we have 3 interesting like national spirits here that give us no modifiers but tell us a bit more about the country. The Tiger of the Peninsula. Singapore is one of the 4 tiger economies of East Asia. It is imperative we maintain this economic status for years to come. Yes, the other is Hong Kong, Taiwan, and South Korea. So those were the well, they sometimes call them also the dragon economies because they did so well. Actually, interestingly, Singapore maintained roughly 6% growth per year since the 1960s. That's unbelievably good, and that's why it's one of the richest countries in the world. Also, funnily, Singapore is it has been for quite some time now, the most expensive cities to live in the world as well. I always thought it was Hong Kong or London, but nope, it's Singapore. Singapore alone. Singapore has historically chosen a consistent path of pro-Western with neutral elements. If we maintain this path, we can continue to keep our strong stance in Southeast Asia. And the last one is the Republic. The Republic of Singapore was established in 1965 during a decolonization of the British Empire. It was formerly a part of the Greater Malaysian colony, but split apart to become the modern-day nation of Singapore. Its ruling party, the People's Action Party, has remained in control over the nation's government for the past 80 years, as it has effectively established itself as a one-party state. Yes, that's something that we will have to address and maybe change, but we will see what kind of path we are going to choose for the country. So here we are with Singapore, a one province minor at the tip of the Malayan Peninsula. By the way, the trade route to China that I mentioned before went first around Africa and through here, and later when the Suez Canal was opened, it still went through here, which is kind of interesting because it passed around India, and that's why this area was always, even when there was the Kingdom of Singapore, seen as a very important trade hub. I was kind of surprised that even in the 13th century, a lot of trade from China flew through here. Interesting. We're gonna be playing on the elite difficulty, as I'm trying to switch from playing veteran to the hardest one, as I want to get more challenge. You can see there is a massive amount of bonuses to the AI. We get only 4 penalties in this mod, but major ones. Political power gain is lowered by 15%, supply consumption is increased by 10%, production efficiency cap is lowered by 30%, and research speed is lowered by 30%. Honestly, I don't care about the production efficiency cap, I'll explain why soon, but political power and research speed is gonna hurt us. So hopefully we're gonna be fine. And last but not least, I'm doing one strategic change here that I never did in this mod, and that's I'm turning off the historical AI focuses. The reason why I'm doing this is I want a bit more dramatic world, because I would like to see China use its power more and expand, and generally do a bit more. I'd like to see some more wars as well. We'll see, because I know very well what's going to happen in case we keep the historical AI on, so let's have a bit more wild history. I think that it can be a bit more fun. I mentioned that Malaysia has a claim on us, so it might also mean that we will get the next very soon, but, well, I mean, it is what it is. We'll see how it's gonna go. So anyway, let's start the game now and see what the setup is going to be like. Okay, so here we are in the game. Now, as usual, I'm gonna start by speaking a bit about the politics of Singapore, the focuses that are gonna move to research, trade, construction, production, and the military. But I'm gonna start the politics part of the video by speaking a bit more about the rough situation we are in, because playing Singapore, the country that you chose, will require a very different approach than I'm used to in the game. We're gonna be playing tall, and by tall, I mean we're gonna be playing tall as a skyscraper. But before we get to that, one side note. I actually cannot select Singapore as a province from any way other than going all the way up here when I can finally click the province itself. So if you see me zooming out and then clicking, I'm not doing it because I like to move my mouse. I'm not doing it because I want to move my mouse wheel, but because I cannot literally select the province otherwise. As you can see, we always select the Navy or the Army. So yeah, that's about it. So first things first, you can see that we are a one province miner. We have only 14 slots in our city, and 9 of those are actually already filled. Now, we will unlock a couple more slots as we will gain more population, so growing our population is going to be one of the priority goals for us. However, no matter how far we get, we are never going to be able to get, massive production out of Singapore. What we can get, though, is money. Singapore is one of the few countries that are actually starting with a positive income, and most of the focuses that it has are targeted on this fact. I don't know where here it is. Bankers of Asia will give us money and tax revenue. Continuing to rise gives you stability, construction speed. There is a lot of other focuses that actually gives you... I have notes about that, but there are some that give you huge amounts of money, and yeah, economic equality gives another bonus, lowers interest rate, tax rate change cost multiplier, and so on. So a lot of the focuses that we are going to get will boost our income, and boosting our income will be our primary goal, because again, we will never be able to get up massive amounts of production unless we get huge amounts of territory, which I'm not planning anytime soon. So budgeting, making money, and actually for the first time, because you guys know that I don't actually like that, and I've never done it in the previous playthroughs, investing in other countries and earning passive income from that is gonna be super important for us. Because once we do that, we can start leasing factories, either civilian or military or naval dockyards, and we'll be able to get our production done by that. Even further, we will need to have good relations with probably United States and Germany, because that's what historically Singapore did. And we can buy equipment from them instead of making it ourselves, again, for money. So we will be really building up from bottom to the top based on money alone, because production, well, yeah, sure, we will get a little bit of production. I think we have like 3 factories. Yep, 3 factories. And research will serve us well there. But we will specialize in a few key areas where we will build what we want. But for the rest, we will just outright buy it from other people. So that is a very different strategy than I'm used to normally. And I don't even know if it's possible at this difficulty and in an amount that would actually protect us. But we'll give it a shot. We don't really have much of another option unless we would like immediately declare war on some miners and try to take them over. But the game seems truly geared toward this fact, and I'm hoping that we will be able to actually do it. So yeah, that's the plan, and everything that I'm going to be talking about now is based on this plan. So that's why I wanted to say it in the beginning, so that you guys will know why I'm planning to do and explaining what I'm going to do. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So okay, let's start by looking at the Singaporean politics. So we are a pluralist state, which gives us a bit of stability, but lowers the Salafist support and lowers acceptance of Salafist diplomacy. No wonder there, we don't want any extremists. We have a stable growth. Again, this is going to be a huge thing for us, getting fast growth and economic boom is going to be absolutely important for us because we want to get as much money as possible, and high stability is going to be super important. Actually, interesting that they changed. It's no longer giving you money, it's giving you monthly productivity growth. Okay, I know where the productivity is, and we'll just check what the change means for us. Singapore is one of the least corrupt countries in the world, which is really interesting, but I still think we can do better. There are a couple focuses that will eliminate the corruption completely. So, there's also one that will give us a lot of money but increase corruption, so we need to manage this, and spending political power here is going to be one of the first goals we will have. We have 3 factions that all are focused on things that we will do. We have the maritime industry with very good relations, which increases the naval yard construction speed by 12%, naval base construction speed by 12%, dockyard output by 12%, and naval max range factor of 12%. We have the landowners, which increase the resource gain efficiency, recruitable population by both by 3%, and civilian industry construction speed by 3%. This is actually completely useless for us. Well, maybe with the exception of recruitable population. I'll explain why, but this might be for the very first time in the actual history of me playing Millennium Dawn where I would consider changing it. Maybe to the intelligence community, maybe to national trade unions, maybe not the farmers, but small and medium businesses could be good. Fossil fuels. Well, I mean, the landowners are truly useless for us, and I'm going to explain why as we're going to go for. Well, actually, I can do it right now. We have absolutely no resources. Not a single one. So, boosting our resources is useless. Boosting the civilian industry construction speed is going to be useless as well because we have nowhere to place them. And yes, recruitable population, okay, fine. But considering our total manpower is 17,000, really? 3% is useless. Who's going to be very useful for us, though, are the international bankers. We also have really good relations with them, and they increase the speed at which we build the construction, at which we build the office sectors. Okay, resource gain efficiency 6%, sure. Maybe if we gain more territory. Trade opinion factor is important for us, 12%. Pro-Western support is important for us. Acceptance of pro-Western diplomacy, okay, 15, not that. But foreign investment duration modifier and cost is also really good. As far as government goes, we have basic civil service administration, we have small military spending, we have basic police and security funding. Okay, this could be pretty quickly increased, but we'll see on that. Again, managing money is going to be super important for us. We have free primary and secondary education. I would maybe consider boosting this as high as possible. The money is not really an issue in this case, and it would give us quite a lot of bonuses. So education is something that we might boost. And basic health clinics, boosting this to advanced healthcare would be amazing as well because monthly population increased by 65%, low tax cost factor, boost to stability. Again, this is going to be a question of money. The education is super cheap. It's not even doubling, but increasing the health clinics to advanced universal healthcare will go from 0.083 billion to 0.4 billion. That's something we cannot afford now, but we want. And same with the pensions for the disabled and then the elderly. That's even more expensive, but it gives even more boost to monthly population stability, political power gain, and so on. Everything that we want. So going as high as possible on these and using our money for that is going to be really important for us. As far as policies go, we got consumption economy, we have mandatory military service, we have volunteer service for women, we have local security. Again, that's something that I would really like to change to global interventionism or neo-imperialism. Okay, but that one requires nationalist or Salafist outlook, so we might go only to global interventionism. And we have officer advanced training. which could also be increased for a bit of political power. And we have no defense companies. We have actually only 4 tanks, ships. Oh wait, they changed it. Okay. They changed it for the new expansion, and I haven't really played much with this, so we'll have to see how it works. But we'll figure it out. So that's the politics. Now the national focuses, as I mentioned, they are geared towards money in most cases. Now there are a couple of categories here. We have Tiger of the Peninsula, which gives us money and some boost to our capabilities, so giving us extra civilian and naval industries. There is Total Defense, which actually focuses on the defense of Singapore. I'm going to speak about that more when we reach military. The Republic, which deals with the actual reforming or solidifying the position of the electorate. And then the Singaporean Alignment, which deals with the internal politics. And the Trade Hub of Southeast Asia, which focuses again on giving you more trade, which equals more money. Now, there's a couple of very important notes here. I'll do a little bit of a skip into the military part because I don't know how else to explain it. Singapore itself is a one province minor, meaning at the moment we get into a war, anyone that's going to attack us is going to automatically have an encirclement bonus. We cannot do anything with it. We can, however, offset it by building forts, which is going to be our priority for the next couple of years. We have no land forts and we have no coastal forts. We can get a bunch of forts from the focuses, but I feel this might be a complete conjecture, so if it doesn't work, I apologize in advance. We're wasting a bit of production. But I feel like when the game says adds land fort and coastal fort, it can add them on top of what you already have, even if you go over, because there are places in the game, like the Maginot Line in the core game or other mods, which have more forts than is available. So I want to test it, because if it does allow us to get additional forts from these focuses above the 5, it's going to be very important for us, because they are fairly nerfed, and we get only, I think, 9%? Oh, 7% for each of the levels. So if you have all of the 5s, we get 35% reduction of the enemy attack, and they have 30% bonus, if I recall correctly, for the encirclement. So if we can add additional bonuses on this, it will greatly help us. Now again, it might not work, we might not get anything from that. Well, sucks to be us then, but I would still like it if it worked. So that's the reason why I'm not gonna deal with these focuses at first. We're gonna deal with the money first, even though the total defense is something that I would like to get as soon as possible. But we're gonna focus on the money making while we build defenses, and then we will try to get these focuses, which will give us the land forts and coastal forts, because it might help. Again, if it doesn't work, I tried it. Well, sure, it might not work. We'll see. So I wrote down a couple of the focuses that we're gonna be starting with, and that are gonna define our strategy. So we're gonna start with the Tiger of the Peninsula, which gives us base stability and political power. Then we're gonna go with the businesses booming, which gives us a bit of steel. Again, we have no production, so we have no resources, so any kind of resource gain that we can get is going to be great for us. So free steel in Singapore is actually huge, and it increases stability, construction speed, and monthly productivity, because it changes our stable growth to fast growth, which is what we want. Once we get the businesses booming, we're gonna jump to the Singaporean wool, which gives us construction speed and production efficiency cap and production efficiency growth for 730 days. And then we get the Bankers of Asia, which gives us 18.74 billion in treasury and grants us receiving foreign investment, which Now, actually, it gives us bankers of Southeast Asia, which means that we get foreign investment cost modifier lowered by 10%, and tax revenue increased by 10%, and we get extra lowered interest rate. Then we're gonna go with the expand the entry pot, which gives us modifiers of political gain, lower tax cost, trade deal opinion, and extra trade to overlord. We have no overlord, so we don't care about that. And then the mouth of Malai, which will give us a civilian industry, but it's gonna give us a building slot. Interestingly, there are some focuses that give you factories, but they don't give you a building slot, which we have to be wary of. So this is a civilian factory with a building slot. And then we're gonna go with Sikh party funds. Now the Sikh party funds are under the Bank of Asia, and they give 150 billion. So it's gonna completely remove our national debt and start giving us money so that we can invest in other countries. However, it also increases corruption from slight corruption to modest corruption. So we'll need to lower that using our political power. Once we're done with that, we're gonna go with continue with the rise, which should at that point increase our fast growth to economic boom. And then we will go with entice foreign investment, which is over here, which gives us an off-map civilian industry. And we're gonna skip because we want to then do the Republic. The Republic will give us a bit of stability and political power gain, and we're gonna reform the monetary system, which increases the construction speed by 7.5%, but lowers interest rate and increases tax rate, change cost multiplier, and project cost multiplier by 5%, because we might jack up the taxes down the line. Then we will go with economic equality, which increases construction speed, lowers interest rate, lowers tax rate, change cost multiplier, and project cost multiplier by 5%. I want these to be done as soon as possible because the taxes might really go up for us. We'll see. Once we're done with this, we are going to reinforce the state. Where is it? Here it is. Because it's gonna give us an increased political power gain of 20%, weaker stability of 0.1, and gives a bit of ideology drift defense. And then we're gonna go with administrative reform, which gives us additional political power, weaker stability, and ideology drift defense. Now this works for only 365 days, so for about a year, or actually exactly a year. I'm not sure how it's gonna be joined because each one gives this thing. So if it reforms it or just adds it on top, but it keeps the 365, I don't know. We'll see, or maybe we'll get it twice. We'll see. Once this is done, we're gonna check on where we're standing with the defense, and if that is done, we're gonna jump to total defense and goes through some of these, which gives us military industries, give us some defensive structure, some training for our generals, and so on. And we're gonna take it from there depending on what are our needs. By that time, we should have a decent income already. As I mentioned, we are in a positive already. We have 0.07 billion, so 70 million per week, which is going to be fine. But I think we can immediately repay the debt and get a... Wow! Oh wait, hell, okay, so now we're getting 0.35 billion per week. I'm not sure if this is gonna hold, but yeah, if we repay this debt completely, we're gonna get additional 36 million per week, and we can start investing this money into foreign areas and get some stuff from it. Well, cool. So that's how we're gonna do the politics. Now let's jump to research. Now research is going to be very easy for the beginning for us. We want to boost research speed and population growth, and also lower any amount of money that we're spending. So for example, educational cost multiplier minus 5% is great. Production efficiency, I'm not really sure about that. I mean, same with construction speed. We're gonna be building so little things that it's gonna be an issue, but still, I mean, factory output, yeah. Right now we have a population growth of 368 civilians per month, and our population, do we see it? Okay, we'll have to see it on the province itself, I guess. We have 4.03 million people here. I don't think that actually shows you when you get more slots, does it? Nope, it just says that we have 14 with moderately populated. So we'll see. But again, boosting population growth is going to be important. So we can select stuff right now. I'm gonna get the improved computing. We want to boost our research speed as as high as possible. We're getting a 30% penalty. Don't forget about that. Edge, unfortunately, is ahead of time by 5 years, so we cannot do that one. But you gave productivity growth and education cost multiplier, so we're gonna get the free G. Actually, let's read the descriptions. I always enjoy them. So computers are becoming more and more popular as time goes on. Computers can now sit comfortably on a desk, allowing for people to have the ability to play games, write papers, and many other comforts that people have never thought possible. Then the 3G. 3G, or the third generation of cellular networking, set new standards for mobile devices and mobile telecommunications. The new generation of cellular networking supported a large kilobytes per second, as well as finding more applicable within wireless applications within wireless voice telephones, mobile internet access, and mobile TV. Okay, you would give us further research speed and production efficiency cap of 5%. Is there anything else here that we want? Factory output document. I would really like to work on the population growth as quickly as possible. So modern GMOs is something that we really want. A genetically modified organism, GMO, is genetically altered organism which can be used in many different fields. For example, crops, cattle, science, and many other forms of cultivations. Wait, I did select the wrong slot in there. Yep. Okay, and the fourth one, that is a question. Construction, no. Construction here, no. Modern electrospinning. Factory output 10% would be good. You give productivity, that's something that we really do want. I haven't really checked extensively the power, but I think at this point we are fairly okay. Boosting it though would give us additional... Yeah, it would give us a lot of additional revenue, but we can't really go that high at this point. So maybe going with the power would make sense. Though it's very long. Snap. Renewable energy. Unlocks the ability to construct battery parks. Population, fuel consumption, and population power use. You're using fuel, huh? Yeah, daily gain is abysmal. Fuel gain for fossil fuels. We have none, so that's not gonna help us. Do these actually, the power plants, count as... No, they actually count as a separate production. So how much? 1 gigawatt. And how much do you cost? 10,000. So it might actually be okay to build it after we finish the... Okay, let's get integrated gasification combined cycle. I mean, they consume fuel, so that is a bit of an issue, but if we build one more and stock it with fuel, we'll be fine. So by converting coal and other carbon-based fuels into gas, we harness the potential of cleaner and more efficient energy production, marking a leap in our fossil fuel energy plant's capabilities. So let's do that one. So we've set the research. We're gonna set the focus as well because we already mentioned that we want the tiger of the peninsula. The tiger of Southeast Asia. We are in one of the most geographically important positions in Southeast Asia. Trade freely flows through us, and we have gradually grown to become one of the world's largest financial centers. It is time for Singapore to live up to its name and truly become the tiger we are meant to be. Oh, so we got it immediately. Effect. Oh, okay, sure. They will hear our roar. Gain base stability plus 5% and political power gain plus 100. Ooh. Okay, so next we are going to move, well, I guess to construction. Okay, let's look at construction. So we already mentioned that we want to start with the land force. They are fairly cheap on a 3,000 construction cost plus 500 per existing land for level. So overall that's what, 15,000, 1,700, am I counting that correctly? Actually no, I'm counting it incorrectly, but it's gonna be 2,500. Okay, it's not gonna be that expensive. It's actually gonna be like maybe, okay, so if each of the construction factories cost 38,000, we are not gonna reach even the level of one factory. So, oh, hold on. This is gonna be a bit of an issue. That's what I was talking about, that we have a hard time building anything or selecting it. So, okay. Let's fit 5 factories in there. We have a fairly high tax cost here, 39%, which means that we need one. Do we have 3? 3 civilian factories? I don't remember what the amount is, but I think, no, we have 2. Okay, so we're gonna have only, I think, 1 factory available once we unpause, which means that we're gonna be building about a factory, about a fort per year. But there are some focuses that will help us with that. I think there was, yeah, the mouth of Malay is gonna give us a factory, and yeah, the entice foreign investment also helps with that. So we will triple our construction capacity. Actually, while we're talking about that, how much does renting a factory cost? About 146 million per week. That's actually not that expensive. But really, in the beginning, we need to repay the debt, get completely rid of it, and then start the investments. And as we will gain more money, we can start renting out factories, because, you know, money first, then the rest. So construction is done. Now, it is a really big question of what we're gonna build in Singapore, because when you look at production, we now have 3 military factories. I'd like to explain something here. We currently have, and I already checked this, I loaded up the game before and unpaused it, and seen that we have everything with the exception of enough IFVs for our armies. Now we have 3 divisions, the 3rd, 6th and 9th divisions. Then we have Singapore Marine Command, and we have a small Singapore Air Assault Command. These are the 3 types of units that we actually have. The Combined Arms Division is actually pretty good. It has a combat width of 49. It has a pretty decent soft and hard attack for the start of the game with the defense and breakthrough. Everything seems to be okay with it. Air Assault Brigade is actually super small, and so is the Marine Brigade, which is specialized units. Now, my initial idea was to recreate the Combined Arms Divisions into a fully defensive units, because when you check them right now, they have I mean, Singapore is a super city. So in the super city, they have a very low defense. So what I wanted to do was remove the tank company, give them a heavy engineer company, change the motorized infantry into the light air assault infantry, and voila, you suddenly have a defense bonus of 13.6 while only slightly changing the stats of the unit. You can also boost it by giving them a bit more artillery, because I think it helps with the super city defense. Yep, so we could add a couple units more, and I think we could also remove some of the tanks and change them to the armored infantry. Now that is a pretty cool idea and would help us, but it has one significant issue, and actually it has two. Singapore, as I mentioned, is a super city. It has a combat width of 141 with additional attacks giving 47. So that puts us into a combat width, if we are attacked from both of these areas, to 188. Now, combined arms divisions have combat width of 49, so we can fit all three of them into the combat. I was planning this until I read a bit about the Singapore military, because their military doctrine is a quick breach. What the Singapore military wants to do is actually, in case of an attack, get away from Singapore so that no fights will be held there, the city won't be damaged, and they will take it into the territory of Malaysia. So I think that we're gonna actually follow this. A defense as a base for us is actually a terrible idea, because we will be encircled. So while we will go ahead with the defensive plan, I plan to use these divisions as an offensive asset, and I would like to build a completely new division here that is going to be focused on the city defense, made of light air assault infantry, special forces and artillery, and stuff made for defense, and we will use these combined arms divisions as an offensive asset. So for that we need things that will help us with the fights in the jungles that are surrounding Singapore, and hopefully allow us to reach quickly away. Now it might seem like a too bold of a plan, but Malaysia isn't doing all that good either. They have roughly 30,000 people in their army, and I think that each one of our divisions have roughly 6,000. So if we equip them well and make sure that they are strong enough, they could ideally breach. So yeah, that's the thing that we will follow. Now, as far as the production go, we have the Bionics 25 here, which is an IFV. We could significantly upgrade it with giving it a better coaxial machine gun and a better engine slot. Conversion isn't all that expensive for us. Oh, it would also get better battle stations. Okay, but we don't have the 9 military experience that we need for now. So let's start building it. We're going to use the ST engineering for it. But as I mentioned before, we actually do not have any resources, so we will immediately start getting a huge penalty to the construction speed. Still, you know, we have the factories, so let's start building the IFVs that we can use. What is funny is that, again, when you check the Singaporean army, they get most of their equipment from United States and Germany. A lot of it also from Israel. So I think we're going to follow that and improve relations with these two nations so that we can start importing the equipment from there. It's going to be a tough balance for us to actually keep investing, keep importing equipment, and keep making, you know, things better for us. So I think that might be actually why we should maybe not even focus on the military industry itself, but actually focus on the office sector, because it's going to increase our GDP, and it's going to give us money, and we will then be able to import more stuff. But we'll see. For now, again, we stick with the current strategy, and we'll deal with the rest later. Actually, speaking of which, I wanted to build the power plant as well. So just so I don't forget, let me put it there right now, because, you know, I might forget later on. Okay, so let's put it there. Cool. So that is the army and the plan for it. Again, once we get some army experience, we are going to focus on these and try to get them better equipped to fight in the jungle, because for now their attack is abysmal and we would get quite a lot of malices when we get into that terrain. Now, as far as Air Force go, the situation is similar. We actually have quite a lot of airplanes, but all of them will have to be imported for now. I'm still not sure what we're gonna focus on, to be quite honest, because we have a very large navy and a very good navy for a country of our size. Actually, Singapore has, what I found, the best navy in Southeast Asia. Surprising very much to me, but they're not the largest navy, but they have the best navy, because they always make sure that their ships are extremely well equipped, because they know that they will never, for example, match the size of China, but they can have better ships than China has. So that's gonna definitely be it, and we will get a ton of extra naval yards from our focuses with extra slots. So we know that these are going to be good for us, because, you know, we definitely can get them. And the improved exporting processes actually change the consumption economy with mixed economy that lowers the tax cost factor for us, which is, you know, great. And it gives us treasury, you know, so 15 extra billion dollars is going to be good. So Navy is definitely going to be something that we will work on internally. But the Air Force would be a good candidate, I think, to build. Because, you know, we can import weapons, we can import tanks and stuff like that, but we, you know, the aircraft are extremely expensive from what I remember. So building them internally and making them as best as we can would be good. Anyway, let's actually get out some of these. Oh, do we have 100? That's interesting. And they even have the AVAX and lift aircraft. Oh, we don't have enough. We cannot, because we do not have enough manpower. Interesting. Well, yeah, this is gonna be a question of what we should build for ourselves, what we should import, and that is actually something that I would like to ask you. What's your opinion on this? Because we will have to truly specialize, and I mean truly specialize. So whatever we do not build, we will import from Germany and United States, but the things that we will build ourselves, we're gonna make super good. And I think that building really good aircraft, modifying them and building them according to our specs is gonna be what we can do best. Now, the civilian factories that we will gain will eventually be all used for imports, so we don't really have to be afraid of importing. But, you know, still, it is something to consider and keep in mind that we will have to import all of our resources, and I mean all of them, including fuel. So keep that in mind and let me know what you think. Last but not least, there is international politics, and I wanted to start by speaking about some of Singapore's traditional friends. However, I remembered or realized that I actually haven't gone through the modifiers. We skipped through them because I, for some reason, was under the impression that we have only the ones listed at the title map, which is not true. Which is not true at all. So, let's go through them now quickly. We're gonna put it into the politics part. So the ASEAN member we've already discussed. Then we have the Commonwealth of National Members. This country is a member of the Commonwealth of Nations, the former British Commonwealth. So this one gives us additional political power gain of 0.05. Actually, we haven't checked how much we're gaining. Okay, 1.41 per day. That's less than I was expecting. We're getting penalty for non-power, migrant workers, elite difficulty, cartels, and stability. Okay. The migrant workers I'll discuss in a second. So the Commonwealth of National Members we've discussed. Then there's the Gateway to Asia. Oh, we've read that. Migrant workers. Okay, so that's the one that actually I referenced a second ago. Political power gain is lowered by 15%. Monthly population is also lowered by 15%. Tax cost factor, and stability is also lowered by 5% and 10%, but population tax revenue is increased by 10% and corporate tax revenue by 30%, and workforce size is increased by 7.5%. This is something that we will have to cancel at a certain point, but I don't know when, and it's gonna hit us very hard. A large number of transited workers in Singapore are migrant workers. They work for the higher wage in Singapore, sending the money back home. This is both a sore spot for the local Malay, Chinese and Indian populaces, as well as the business owners who prefer this labor over local Singaporeans. So the moment we cancel this, our population tax revenue and corporate tax revenue is going to drop like a rock, reducing the amount that we're getting quite significantly. So population income would drop by 10% and corporate by 30%. So we would lose 30, and here we would lose, wow, about 320. So roughly 0.4 billion, which would negate all of the income that we're getting right now. So once we get a decent influx of money from our investments, we can think about it for the sake of population growth, factory and stability, or factories and stability, but until then we really can't do much. Moderate censorship laws, political power gain increased by 5%, stability by 2%, police cost is low by 10%, and propaganda campaign is increased by 5%. The 4 Asian Tigers legacy. Tax cost is lowered by 2.5%, construction speed increased by 7.5%, trade opinion by 5%, and tax revenue by 5%. The 4 economies of South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong saw unprecedented growth in the latter part of the last century. Their businesses through a combination of market and state interventions created rapidly advancing economies. I should have finished reading that. Their glory days were cut short in the wake of the 1997 Asian financial crisis. Unlike other countries affected, their economies are still relatively productive. Will be removed when? 24th of June 2005. Okay. Then the 1997 Asian financial crisis. Okay, so these ones kind of negate each other to a certain degree. Non-power. Okay, this is something that is new in this version of Millennium Dawn. Non-power. Political power gain lowered by 20%, joint faction tension limit increased by 25%, foreign influence defense multiplier lowered by 25%, foreign influence multiplier lowered by 25%, and law cost lowered by 20%. As a non-power, we are essentially a non-factor in international diplomacy, with few, if any, caring about our position on anything. We are tools to more dominant and influential sovereign nations, whom with ease can influence our politics and society. Power status is determined by how much GDP we contribute to the world total, modified by our independence from foreign influence. Our current contribution is 0.1%. The required contributions for the different levels are: more than 15% is a superpower, 6.5% is a great power, 2.5% is a major power, more than 0.2% is a minor power, and less than 0.2% is a non-power. In every geographical region, a certain number of the strongest minor powers will be classified as regional powers if there aren't enough superpowers, great powers, and major powers in the region. The regions and numbers of countries above minor powers are 7 in Europe, 3 in Middle East and North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa has 3, Asia has 7, and America has 4. And the national electrical grid. The spirit displays the sum of fuel consumption from fossil power plants and direct fuel consumption from non-electrical sources, as well as eventual malices that arise if the power consumption were to be unsatisfied by the power generation. Okay, so we're losing 158 fuel per day. Lack of fuel penalties. The spirit displays the penalties that arise if the country were to consume all its fuel reserves, leaving none for the population to consume. Cartels. Okay, so they do have more effects than I thought. Drug violence and gang activity are responsible for a large part of the nation's criminal activities. These powerful criminal organizations operate through the entire country, and many residents fear the situation will only escalate. However, depending on our government, we may be able to turn this hindrance into a tool. Is there anything that really hurts us? The tax revenue does hurt us significantly. And cost to change corruption is increased. Political power again is something that I care about, but division organization, monthly population also as well. Okay, stability, free repair. See, I'm thinking whether or not we should fight the cartels immediately, because it's gonna cost us quite a lot of money. Is there anything else that we can do? Target money laundering operations. Investigate the casinos, investigate the banks, and investigate shell companies. Target drug running operations. Target local cartel leaders. Change in popularity. Strength of the cartels is lowered. 60% change that our popularity is lowered as well. Okay. So we have... okay, I get it. So the local cartel leaders, if we target them, we have only 39% chance that it's going to work. And a 60% chance that they will actually get stronger. Okay. Well, that's fun. Criminal organizations are running rampant in our nation. Mafia, drug cartels, and gangs make regular plays for power and influence with little regard for who is hurt or killed. Left unchecked and unmanaged, our state could devolve into a kind of anarcho-criminal state one only sees in American noirs or devangaros. The political influence of the cartels represents their ability to wield our corruption as a weapon against us. The higher the political influence, the less likely it is we will be able to carry out investigations. The strength of the cartels represents their ability to wield violence against us and our people. The higher their strength, the less likely it is that we will be able to carry out raids. If either strength or influence becomes too high, the cartels may try to seize control. Jesus Christ. Okay. Well, that's much less of a fun, so we should really work with that immediately. Okay, well, either way, politics. So, we have to fight the cartels, but a lot of our political power is gonna go at first to influence and improve relations with Germany and United States. I'm not sure if we're gonna start with both of them immediately. How much would we spend? 0.2 on you. And 0.2 on Germany. Okay, well, we could. But I think we're gonna start with United States first and then Germany. And another one that we would traditionally want to be friends with is Israel. Believe it or not, Israel was a big supporter of Singapore after it got its independence. Because there were, and I mentioned that in the beginning of the video, a lot of tensions between Malaysia and Singapore. And there were even some threats, like, not really, but the tensions escalated to some point that Singapore started to be afraid of an invasion from Malaysia. So Israel provided a lot of weapons and training to Singapore, and till today they have very way above standard relations because both of these nations are surrounded by bigger, more, I guess, more populous nations would be the way to put it. Last but not least, the nation that Singapore has very close relations with is Brunei, which surprised me a lot. And I mean a lot. It goes as far, and I don't understand why it's not reflected in the game, by the way, but it goes as far as to have an agreement between Singapore and Brunei about using each other's currencies, really. So the Singaporean dollar is a national currency of Brunei, and the Bruneian currency is the national currency of Singapore. It's really crazy. So I want to roleplay this and protect and improve relations with Brunei, even though it's gonna be, I guess, nonsensical to us in many ways. I would like to keep roleplaying that. Other than that, Singapore has traditionally relations with pretty much everyone, 180 states in the world, even with North Korea and South Korea. So Singapore was the place where a meeting between Trump and the North Korean dictator took place. It was in Singapore, and they also had a meeting between South Korea and North Korea in there. So they are an arbiter of many conflicts, so we will try to see if we can do something with that. But who knows? Okay, I've spoken for over an hour now, way over an hour, but I hope that I laid the foundation for your understanding. There is a lot of things that we will have to look into and do. First, again, the debt. We want to save up money, we want to get rid of the cartels, we want to start investing in nations. I'm probably going to be investing in Japan, Germany, and United States, because those are going to be our traditional allies. Same with Israel. I wouldn't like it if we could invest in Malaysia or Indonesia, because those are our most likely traditional enemies. I think that I mentioned that, and I hope that I'm not mistaken, but I think that Malaysia has a claim on us. Yeah, they do. Okay, so if something goes wrong, they will attack us. So we need to have a strong military. Actually, Singapore has very high military budget. They're investing roughly 3.7% of their GDP into defense, which is way more than any other nation around this area. And it is for the deterrence of their neighbors. So again, we'll have to reform our military so that we have an effective force that can operate in the Malaysian jungles and one that will operate greatly in Singapore itself. But for that, we'll need manpower, which we do not have. That is something that we really... Well, I mean, the modern GMOs are going to be important, and maybe... I mean, we already have the mandatory service. If we went with mandatory service for women, we would be hurting our monthly population. So really, we only can get more people via natural growth. Well, okay. Still, anyway, hope you enjoyed the episodes. Please let me know if anything that I mentioned is... if I forget anything, if you don't agree with anything, if you agree, suggestions. This is gonna be a really different kind of game for me. I never really wielded the money in this kind of amount. When we played Iran, Ukraine, we always had a lot of internal production and we used it to stay, safe. Iran actually bought quite a lot of things from Russia where we tested how it works. But, money wasn't the primary goal. Here, money is going to be everything for us, because while we are going to increase our industrial capacity, it's never going to be enough for us. So the capacity will have to be highly specialized in import of resources and construction of 2, maybe 3 things. The rest will have to import. So yeah. With that said, thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you in episode 2 of Singapore, where we are actually gonna start the game. So till then, you guys take care.